What is up, everybody? Welcome to another live Pendergast podcast on this beautiful Sunday. Well, it's mid-afternoon where I am, but it's evening time where my man Mike is. But before we get into this podcast episode, which is, again, it's an absolute honor to sit down with Mike, is brought to you by Next Level Financial. Take control of your financial future. Get your complimentary financial analysis today by Seth Starnes. And, Mike, we had this conversation. I always say it. Don't buy an off-the-rack suit. Go to bisontrack.com. Get you a full custom suit that is tailor-measured specifically for you. You'll have the movement. You'll have the freedom. Your lat comms will come. Listen, throw away that old suit you have. Treat yourself. Love yourself. Get a full custom suit. Bisontrack.com, people. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, it's an absolute honor to sit down with the legend, Mike Spike Edwards, again today. Mike, what's going on, mate?
It's cold, Chris. I was up at 3:30 this morning out on the highways of the Yorkshire, putting grit down because that's what I do during the winter when the biking's a bit thin on the ground. I go out gritting the highways, so they were below zero out this morning. So yeah, early start out there, put about 5 or 10 ton of grit down, came back home, had a few hours kip, and I'm awake again now.
I love it. It's so people 0 degrees Celsius where they are. It's 32 degrees Fahrenheit here in America, which is below freezing. Yeah. It's
grit. You're imperial, aren't you?
Yeah, right. Salt grit is what we call salt out here, right? Same thing. Salt. You guys salt the roads. Yeah. They do the same out here when it's we're supposed to get this weather, but just like all forecasts, Mike, they can call it. Don't necessarily mean it's going to happen the way they say it's going to happen. So at least over here across this side of the pond.
Well, it's a bit hit and miss. I mean, we were talking off air before we went live. It was how the climate is definitely is changing. So the seasons are all moving about, and it's very difficult to predict stuff. I mean, I normally work from October 1 through to April 1 as a winter maintenance program, but that's kind of being slid sideways date-wise. Last year we were gritting 25th or 6th of April. We were still putting grit down, yet we didn't start till the end of October. So it's kind of moving about a wee bit. So it's difficult to predict. And of course, the storms are all coming in now. We had a storm the last couple of days, a worst one in 25 years. It was only a very short event, but was quite dramatic when it arrived. And those are getting more and more. But yeah, and that's affecting the biking world as well, because who wants to go out when it's bloody freezing? Not me.
Absolutely not, because you're tired. I don't care how hot you get them; they're not going to be sticky very long when the ground temperature is just cold. So it makes it for a sketch situation. And again, who wants to go out there and freeze their balls off? Not me, right? So just be honest.
No, it's not my favorite idea, particularly when I'm coaching somebody and you stood at a track and you're rubbing your hands trying to stay warm. It's like maybe 32 degrees Fahrenheit over there, and over here it's like just above freezing. And you absolutely, there's a term called nithered, which is you're so cold you just don't quite know what to do with yourself. And then you're trying to get your client all kind of revved up to go out there and do his thing, and he's just so not interested. And it can be tricky sometimes to sort of motivate somebody to do that, and you've got to sort of calm them down because they want to go out and show how fantastic they are, and they tear off it into the first corner and instantly chuck it against the fence, and then the day is screwed for everybody, sort of thing. So yeah, the weather is a big issue.
Yeah, for sure. I could see that standing. I've been that many times standing on the side of the track, freezing my balls off, watching people go out. I'm like, I'm glad I'm not out there, and I'm freezing, standing right here, just trying to breathe, right, trying to warm my core up. But yeah, it only works, but for so long.
It's not so bad on the bike. Often you can sort of, because you're generating quite a lot of heat. You do get a bit hot and sweaty on the bike, even when it's cold. But we were talking off air about endurance racing, and there's been times when I've been doing 24-hour races, and you go obviously right through the night, and the temperature falls away during the night, so it is cold. But you generally quite warm when you're riding round. But then, the pace car will come out, and then you're crawling around behind the pace car, and within a couple of laps, you've lost all your body heat. The bike's gone cool, and you're almost dreading them pulling the pace car in, because you've got to then try and get some sort of heat back into the tyre, and you're absolutely bloody freezing. I remember one time at the Bol d'Or in 94, 95, something like that. I think it was 95, and the pace car was out for about 15 laps. It was a big crash. And during the night, of course, and it was absolutely bloody freezing. And everywhere you could see everyone going down the straight, and you're only doing following the pace car, you're only doing sort of about 80, 90 mile an hour maximum on the straights, which is slow. And you're down behind the bubble, just you're hugging the frame, trying to get any heat back into your body, sort of thing. And you're moving about and wriggling, trying to generate heat and sort of thing. And then the pace car lights go out, which means he's going to pull in a lap. So then you start getting all stupid on the bike, trying to generate heat in the tyres and back into the brakes. And often in them situations, everyone's bunched up behind them. And then you get the two riders will touch each other, and the bloody pace car stays out and puts his lights back on. Oh, for fuck's sake. So, yeah, cold on a bike is not good news.
Oh man, so yeah, listen, Mike, dude, we got a lot to talk about. The first time I had you on here, obviously we talked about how you got into it, how you became the legend you are, all those championships and wins, long career in BSB, open roads, short circuits, all that. So yeah, I definitely we'll transition into endurance racing for sure, which brings me to a question. When you're racing endurance, obviously your mental game is different approach to that versus short circuits, correct?
Yeah, it's a completely different mindset you're into, and it even depends on the duration of the race. A lot of you can consider an endurance race anything over sort of 2 to 3 hours. So sometimes they have 200 miles, which are distance you've got to cover, and that's variable depending on the length of track, conditions, and so on. The time-wise, or you just get a flat, it's a 2 hour, 4 hour, 8 hour, 12 hour, whatever. So because of that, you obviously need to stop the bike and refuel, fit tires, pads, all that sort of thing. So the strategy is very much about trying to be consistent. When I came into endurance racing, in 94 was my first one. I was sort of led to believe that it was kind of not exactly an old man's sport, but where racers had kind of finished their sort of competitive career, they would drift into endurance racing because it was still racing, but it was on a much slower pace. I was so wrong. It's superbike pace sort of thing. There's not that much difference between world endurance and world superbike from a pace perspective. It's obviously a little bit down because the bikes generally are softer tuned, because of the duration issue. They're slightly heavier because they've got lights, bigger batteries, that sort of thing. But from a mindset point of view, the biggest thing is about looking after your body, because if you're doing, let's say for argument's sake, you're doing a 24-hour, which is kind of the ultimate endurance, you've got 3 riders on the bike. You start off with 4, and then after qualifying, you figure out, who you're going to drop in the team, and then you start the race with 3 riders. If you're only doing, say, an 8-hour or a 6-hour, often you'll just have 2 riders and then back to back each other all the way through. But again, it's a setup team issue. That if you also calculate what the weather's going to be like, because if it's looking like it's going to have a lot of shit weather, your hot guys might not be that hot in the wet. So you look for the team who's good in the rain, because that's obviously a definite bonus then. So you'll keep your 4th man and drop the other 3. But from my perspective, I used to go out and basically overextend. That means I'd run too hard, too fast. As in, lap 4, I was really pushing super hard, and then not realizing, because I was new at it, realizing that you've not only got to stay on the bike, because in the 90s you stay on the bikes. The bikes had 24-litre fuel. You're only 750 cc capacity, so you could get a long way on the bike. So you were sort of hour 10, hour 15 minutes where you'd see your inboard. long time when you're out on track. So you've got to manage your body as much as anything else, and sometimes just cough that little bit, so you can stay consistently fast, as opposed to have a peak and start to fall away from a performance point of view. Because if you're falling away from a performance point of view and you're not lapping consistently, there's just in the team who are working out when they're going to stop. The rest of it throws that into flutter. So consistency is probably the key thing. So how you ride is super important. So you maintain your body, because of course you start the bike. That means you're going to be thick end of an hour. You get back into the pits, and there's 2 other rides. So that means you're going to be off the bike for maybe the 2 hours to give you a chance to replenish and get you stood out. But in a 24-hour race, you're going to repeat 8 times, probably more if somebody drops out. That if you have a crash, one of the riders is out through injury. So mentally, you've got to put yourself in a completely different mind space, instead of coming up a guy and just being absolutely ruthless to get past sort of thing. You're sometimes better off following it, particularly if they're a quick rider, and then following them for a while, because it'll be probably similar pace to you. And often in endurance racing, the race, it's only a 24-hour race. The race can be finished from a tactical point of view midday with 3 or 4 hours to go on the second day, because you're so front. All you've got to do is just keep the bike going. And that's just the other side of the endurance racing, because you're sharing one bike. It's super important that you maintain consistency. So the bike, almost like the bike, if it had a brain, it knows what it's up to. It like to be rev same. So all the liters kind of all the same. So you're back to that consistency again. But I think scratch racing, your normal kind of super bike, super sport kind of racing, is very much brain out and just absolutely pull the pin, metaphorically speaking, and just go for it, with not an awful lot of strategy thrown in. You can argue there's a tire strategy where you've got to sort of maintain a certain amount of grip, so you can't pull the pin straight away. You've got to manage the tires. Where endurance side of things, that's slightly different, because often you can change the tires every hour, and the tires. Rossi, mate, how are you?
Mike says, "How are you?"
Good.
My
arms are so sore.
I'm
gonna go play VR anyway.
Right? Do your
arms hurt my arms even more.
We'll go stretch them out.
Oh.
They were. So we have this thing. I don't know if you heard of the Oculus. You put it on your face and you have these controllers, and it's like a virtual reality video game.
Oh, virtual reality game, yeah.
Bro, and they're in there, him and his buddy, and they're swinging and climbing and doing all this stuff, right? And
this is my favorite.
He wakes up this morning, he's like, my arms are so sore. I'm like, yeah, of course. You're swinging them around like a freaking monkey all day. He's going to get beat up on camera, everybody. Yeah.
Everybody, yeah. Keep that one quiet.
Right. Give me 5, buddy. All right. So yeah, there is. It's endurance racing. It's the setup of the bike's completely different, and you're obviously allowed to have a larger fuel cell too, so you carry more fuel for.
Yeah. I'm not sure what it is now. Whether they dropped it a little bit, the fuel capacity, but it used to be 24 liters. I think it may be 22 now, something like that. It's certainly a lot larger than the average superbike tank, which is, I guess, and again, you can't really directly compare it to superbike, as in World Superbike, because they literally just have just an amount of fuel to do the race, and they can often have a spare capacity. Where in an endurance race, you basically stay out. If you had a fuel light come on, you could stay out till the light comes on. But it's very much keep the bike out there, because obviously the longer you keep the bike out there, if you can reduce the amount of stops that you do, you're obviously going to gain a huge amount of time, because one of the biggest time losses in endurance racing is pitting. Obviously, you're going to lose time on your in-lap, because you obviously you have to go to slow down the pit lane, and the same when you leave. And obviously the downtime in the pit. I've lost races through having to do a last-minute fuel stop and that sort of thing, because you can't risk not finishing, So it's a better option to sort of suck it up and have a what they call a splash and dash, just to get you to the end. Particularly if you've done a 24-hour race, the very last thing you want to be doing is pushing the bloody thing home. But yeah, the bikes are very different. What was interesting, I remember talking to Colin Edwards in 2002, and I did Suzuka with Phase One British team, and Colin Edwards had in the SP2 Honda, and he was back out with not Troy Corse. Anyway, battling it out the Ducatis, a bit nip and tuck. But the Ducati was winning up till Suzuka. And then I talked to Colin about the bike, and I said, "Well, how's the endurance SP2 compared to your normal SP2?" And he says, "Man, I'm 2.5 seconds lap faster on the endurance bike because everybody, or the Japanese manufacturers, particularly desperate to win Suzuka, so they tend to stuff back a little bit. So Suzuka comes around and the best shout. And often what happens after Suzuka, you'll see a lot of the Japanese manufacturers, they have like a push of Spurs packages go out to the various teams, or low-rated teams, and their level of increases." Himself said that they have to be that little bit heavier, and which the nature of the bike. Suzuka's obviously on our race, so it's considerably shorter than the 24, but essentially 24 is exactly this, just longer in the sense that they go to that consistency level. They could probably lap faster. We might have to alter the bike a little bit to go that little bit faster, but you start to get a little bit of inconsistency, which is bad. So yeah, the bikes are fairly different, but probably the biggest thing about it is the mindset that you go out there with is to make sure that you physically the same lap to lap 900. You need to be consistent through all that, even if that means bringing your pace down slightly, so you can get to the end of the race. So important.
100%. And the whole setup, the whole way you approach endurance racing versus short circuit racing. I mean, you had talked about this off camera. The setup of the motorcycle is the critical thing, right? Because not everybody's style is the same. The clip-on position, the brakes, the clutch, the whole nine. What goes into that behind the scenes to get that bike set up for whoever riders are riding it? Is this obviously you guys have a setup day or a practice week, or how does that work?
You can do some of it on the assumption you're running with the same team all year, because what often happens with endurance racing is you'll have a group of riders who will do the whole championship, but they may, season goes on, may have an overlap with another race that they want to do, so they'll bring in a rider, or one rider drops out through injury, so they have to bring another rider in. So some of the setup of the bikes can be done pre-season, but generally speaking, with endurance, you get quite a lot of practice on the run up to it, because of course you've got to do night practice before the start of the race if it obviously goes into the night. So you've got to do night practice anyway. So there's generally quite a lot of practice, and that's usually enough to hammer out any issues that you have. Obviously, the big thing you don't want it in a setup of a bike is particularly with the rider's size and shape, because that affects the weight of the bike, which affects the how hard the suspension needs to be and the damping rates and so on. I mean, I remember doing a race at Vallelunga with Phase One in 2003, something like that too. And I was on the second of the two bikes they had there, and I'm cursing now, I can't remember the guy's name. It was a huge German guy or Austrian guy. He must have been 6'5", and I don't know, you're in pounds, I can't remember what pounds per kilo. He must have been 120 kilo, a bloody big giant of a bloke. And then there's me, who's like sort of 80 kilos at 5'7". And then the third rider was a British guy called Richard Cooper. who was 42 kilos and about 4'6". So we had this massive disparity between the height, size, and weight, etc. So I was lucky because what my settings were, the big German just had to suck it up. And poor Richard, who was hanging on to everything, sort of thing. So I was in the best place because I went for the knee, because you've got to make the bike as mean level as possible. And it's also quite important to try and help the slower rider go as fast as he can, as opposed to make the faster rider go even faster. Because again, you lose that consistency. And I'm not banging on about consistency, but it's mega important. But things like altering the generally speaking, the handlebar position stays the same. You agree that somewhere where the bike is something like levers. Obviously nowadays levers you can quickly change where the pitch of where they are. Gear levers are a bit of a problem. Going back to those days, I used to race in road shifts, so I was 1 down 5 up, where most riders were 1 up 5 down. But again, they can have real quick changes there where you just swap this lever around and you've got a race shift, road shifts, and it's a real quick push pin sort of arrangement. But yeah, you can either do it pre-season if you've got an established team which you're going to run for the whole season, or use practice to kind of iron out the bugs. 2002, when again with Phase One, my teammate was Jason Pridmore. Jason's a pretty tall Californian. He's 6'2", 6'3", something like that. Good-looking guy, bastard. And he had a certain style of the way he rode, which was generally damn fast. And thankfully, he could ride round some issues because we obviously he had quite big hands, long fingers, so he had his levers out. So I said, look, I just can't reach the levers. So can we bring it back in again? And he sucked it up and brought the levers back in again. But the one thing, because our body lengths were different, and of course you're riding 1,000, and Suzuki's have quite a big seat, which means when your nuts up against the tank and you're in the corner, when you accelerate out the corner, often you slide back of the seat. So to help that, I have what's called a bum stop, which is a big rubber pad you sit onto the back of the seat unit, and that you can kind of hook your bum into that, and it stops you around as much. And with this Velcro massive bunging, which is the rider's duty, because of course Jason, because he's bigger, he didn't ride with it. So he'd come in, he'd jump off the bike. Before I jumped on the bike, I'd on onto the Velcro pad, this big seat bumps thing. Be great, and I'd go out and do things. But we were at Imola doing the 200 in 2000. Leading the race, Jane came in, and it's all high pressure, because in the 200-mile race you only get 2 stops. So it's kind of I was going to do like a long. He did a short start session. I did a long middle session, and then a short sprint at the end. Anyway, he came. He jumps off. We have a chat on the bike. You know, everything okay? Yeah, let's go for it. Watch out for six. That's great. So I went with my time on the bike. So I grabbed all the left hand hard. I'd already put the seat bung on the seat unit, and as I swung my leg over without realising, my knee put the seat bung and knocked it off. Of course, I sat off down the pit lane, got to the end of the pit, left to the left, clear, quick time to go on the bike, and kind of slightly back up the seat, and I thought, bloody hell, where's my bump gone? And it was an absolute living hell, because I'd completely got myself up for coming out of corners, and I kind of, when I'm in the corner, I stop the seat, and when I'm coming out the corners, I kind of move myself back a little bit, but I have the seat bung's great because it kind of locks you in space, and of course I've lost that. So I'm trying to hang on to the hamster, trying to hold myself in position. And anyone who knows Imola, you come out to the start-finish, onto the start, it's a real tight chicane. And you've got a short straight which leads into a huge long curve, and you're just going up through the trees around this curve. It's like a way-to-way corner. You just seem to go on forever. And we're going around this corner, and the bloody bike's weaving all over the place every lap, having to hang on to the bars. So I did about, I don't know, maybe 25 minutes of this, and it was wearing me out because I'm I'm stressing out trying to hang on to the thing. So I had to completely rejig the way I was doing it and try to grip on with my knees so I could relax my hands on the handlebars. So it was interesting. and a bit of a at the same time. So these are sort of things from a setup point of view that you have to work out. See the seat bung on, but generally speaking, foot peg, handlebars, they stay more or less in the same place. So the easy one to change are your levers and your brake lever, gear lever, and they are a relatively quick change. But the majority of the setup is pre-race. You generally don't try and change the bike during the race unless there's a calamity. If you end over the forks and you have to start putting new forks in, even though you dial the same setting in. Often forks, even though it can be identical, the same setting doesn't translate. So you can do a little bit, but if you've got point anyway, it's a damage recovery sort of situation. You're just trying to get to the end of the score and score any points you can at that point. But yeah, setup really important.
Absolutely. RGV Nut, he has a comment for you. He says, "Knob, Mike knows more than most."
Colin Smiley, my mate from many years ago. Many years ago. My mate now he lives over in Formby, which is over the other side of the country, over on the dark side. Yeah. I mean, my memory is just bloody awful, to be honest. Skilly, his memory is like analytic. He tell you bloody tire pressures from 1983. Burns me head how I can remember it all. Fantastic.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
How are you, Colin, by the way?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for tuning in, man. Absolutely. And then Israel says, Mini Cooper, he had the highest top speed at Daytona last year. Yeah, Richard Cooper did. He did have that, and they'll be back. Richard Cooper's going to be back. My man Hickman's going to be back. The True Love brothers are going to be there, and if I'm not mistaken, Danny Webb, I heard, is going to be there.
Oh, yeah.
So it's going to be I think Danny Webb's going to do the classics races there. It's going to be a proper mega time at Daytona this year. Mm-hmm. Looking forward to going. Never been, Mike. I've never been, so it's
never done it.
Nope. That'll be my first time, and I'm really looking forward to it. Seeing all my friends and what as I always call it, our beautiful circus. Which our circus is the same all around the world. It don't matter if it's BSB, World Superbike, ASBK. Everybody's the same. Everybody's one big family. Everybody loves everybody, and everybody wants to see everybody succeed, which is unique in our sport. That's what separates us from all the other sports out there. Is we're a big family.
That's right.
And it's absolutely.
I only did Daytona once.
Did you?
I've only done it once, and in '95, yeah, did that. Well, we went over to do the Daytona 200. And it's your first time really in over the pond, as it were. So the whole thing, I mean, it's a strange environment, it's a strange race, full stop. The tri-oval and the infield section and so on, and learning how to draft out, coming off the banking, because it's all about drafting there. And it was bloody hard work, to be honest. And it was particularly hard work on the Harley, because the Harley was way, way, way down on power. So it was a case of like trying to ride the wheels off it in the infield, and then just come out the infield on the left hand to get up the banking, and just desperate to get behind somebody to try and get a toe round. Because if you lost the toe, that was it. You were in the way at that point.
Absolutely.
To be honest, I ended up crashing there in the second qualifying. We qualified in the first wave, which was what we needed to do for the start. And I needed really to try and climb up, or I was desperate to climb up the grid a bit more. So I thought, I'm going to go out again and really pull the pin, put a fresh rear tyre, and tried real hard. And coming out onto the banking, it's a left-hander, but it was, I don't know if it's still left-hander, to come up onto the rest of the banking. And going into the corner, Freddie passed us on a fast by Ferracci Ducati, which was a missile. I thought that was the perfect bike to try and get in. Anyway, I forgot clearly who he was as well, and he came out the corner and just disappeared. And I'm thinking, so I tried to keep up with it, just sent myself high-sided and destroyed the bike and broke my collar. So that was the end of the event for me. But no, Daytona, yeah, odd place. I mean, I I couldn't believe it. We were in the garages working away on the Harley after one of the races. We did the Bears race, twins, triples type race. We did that as well, and the bike blew up. So we putting a new engine heads on it and all the rest of it. And it was about six in the afternoon stroke evening, and the security guys, we could see people loading stuff up in vans as disappearing, and paying much attention to that. And the security staff came in and said, right, you have to vacate the premises. No, we're working on the bike. And they said, no, we have to leave now. So we had to just go and then come in the morning and rush like hell to get the bike finished, because they just closed the facility. And I'd never experienced that before. Normally, we'd be in the garage till the morning, until they got the thing done. And yeah, so it was a strange environment, that's for sure.
Yeah, and you were on the VR 1000 is what it was.
Yeah,
the Harley?
VR 1000, yeah.
They, I heard they were sweet handling bikes. I heard they handled really well.
Oh yeah. The chassis were designed by Haas in the UK, and it was beautiful. The chassis. I mean, the condition of the bike was really good. Real quality stuff. Öhlins, you mentioned, it was as good as you could get it chassis wise. It just had this not very powerful, extremely heavy engine in it, which was always its Achilles at the end of the day. But from a hand perspective, it was sweet, absolutely sweet. But as a place like Daytona, I'm not suggesting you need handling, but you need speed. And going on the banking, ideally you kind of go right to the top of the wall and hug the wall going round, and you fell in the way, because people were passing you at 30 odd mile an hour faster than you, which is super fast to come past you, sort of thing. And I ended up dropping down halfway down the banking just to sort of let people pass. It was desperately frustrating. I know it sounds all down about Harley and that, but we got the late. And the Harley tried the best. They came up with some different cylinder heads, like a factory heads to put on. But again, we ran out of time, and they gave us a Harley mechanic to help us to speed the thing up. Speed the fitment of the parts, because of course we didn't realize that you couldn't stay overnight there. And it was a bit of a learning curve, shall we say.
Oh, I couldn't imagine. It's again, that's a different type of endurance race, the 200. Track knowledge is obviously a big thing, and Daytona, let's just be honest, in America, that's like the number one track everybody talks about. You mentioned America, it's Daytona 200, the speedway, not COTA, not Laguna Seca, is Daytona. It's probably our most prestige racetrack we have in America that we're actually known for here is Daytona. So yeah, it's I can't wait to go. My buddy sent me a picture, because I have a bunch of friends that live down there, and he's like, wait till you get here and try to walk up the banking. You're gonna be like, holy shit, just how steep it is, right? When you see it in real life, you're like,
I think it's about 32 degrees, something like that. I mean, it's really funny, because it starts off obviously flat, and then you can have the first part of the steps is having 20 degrees, and then it kind of ramps up to it's slightly curved, if you will. And the top bit, when you go into the wall, you can walk up it. You'd always feel like you want to drop onto all fours, and you kind of look down to the ground long way. What's also weird about it is it's a left-hander at the end of the day. You're going left down the track. And you feel, because you're going, you're doing thick end of 200 mile an hour on a proper bike, but you're not looking forward. You're looking left the whole way around, because effectively you're going around the left-hand corner, and that was a weird experience. And of course, because you're being pushed into the banking, your head gets kind of you feel really heavy on the bike, because you're being squashed down the bike, and your chin's kind of bouncing off the tank, and the tires are all kind of flattening out, and the suspension's kind of not completely used up, but well in its stroke. And then you come onto the straight sections. You drop off the banking onto the straight sections, and it feels like you've gone all light all of a sudden, because you're not getting squashed into the ground anymore. And there's tracks in the UK where you get compressions, and you feel like that sort of jolt when you go through that. But this, because it's so constant and it's a build up, you come onto it normal, and then you go faster and faster and faster, and get pushed down more and more and more. But that you're on the bankings for quite a long time, it's that there's something wrong, and then you come off the banking, and it's all changed again, and then you've got to stop for a chicane, and then you're back on the banking again, and it's a really difficult track. I mean, you can see the slipstreaming or drafting is kind of the win or lose thing about it, and the timing of the draft, of the run to the line, like coming out the last chicane, you don't want to be leading because you're not going to get to the line first. It's all about timing. You're coming out behind somebody, and the timing of dropping down the banking, so you get a little bit more of a run. So you could argue it's not a very technical track, but to me it's really, really technical, because you've got to know and learn the dropping off the banking. So I wouldn't describe it as a great track. It's just a very different track to anything I was used to. So I mean, I suppose I need to go back again and relearn it and relive it. Sort of thing.
Come
Any
on,
offers, guys?
Yeah, we do. We'd love to have you here, man. It'd be, proper mega to get to meet in real life and continue the conversation and chat it up and do a track walk. Yeah, it'd be absolutely amazing. And to me, Daytona's that endurance. I always call it an endurance race because that's what it is. The gearing on all races is really important, but not so much, more so at Daytona. Because of what you just said, how long the straightaway and the baking is, you really want to get in that draft. So you want to have the legs on the bike. So if you will, obviously you need the horsepower too, but they actually stopped racing super bikes at Daytona. Trying to think of the last year they raced there, Ben Speeds' rear Dunlop tire actually blew up on the banking. And that's why they stopped racing the 1000s, because they just couldn't, the tires couldn't handle it. And it's a big liability.
Heat build up in the tire. Yeah, heat build up tire was I mean, they had a similar thing over the years at the tracks like the TT, where you go in at 200 mile an hour essentially for quite a long time, and the heat build up of the tire was enormous. But Daytona is even worse because you've got so much load on the bike around the corners, which it flattens the tire, so it's generating a whole heap more. What do you do? You have to generate multiple compound tires to try and keep the center of the tire in. Allow some sort of grip. So the dual compound tires. But I can see he dropped the 1000 cc's because it just takes, not all of it, but it takes a huge amount of that issue away, because the 600s essentially don't generate as much heat because they're not going as fast, they're not as heavy, so you're easing that sort of thing all the way through. I can honestly see it happening at tracks like TT than dropping the 1000s, because they're getting stupid fast, and they've been fast obviously for a long time, but they're going so fast now that you're just pushing the boundaries so much. I mean, don't get me wrong, the 600s are bloody flying as well, and you could argue out the 600s will try even harder, but I think there's a bit more leeway with the 600s. So I can definitely see from a safety perspective why the Americans or championships have dropped the 1000s. They blow wind up your skirt, but they're bloody hard work and potentially dangerous at certain circuits to run.
Yeah, I mean, it's the TT, everybody knows, is my absolute favorite race of the year. If I could choose one race to watch and only one race of the year, it'd be the TT, the fortnight, the whole 2 weeks, the practice, the whole nine. It's you're right, they're getting so fast now. I mean, Peter Hickman, 100 and almost 38 miles an hour average lap, which is just, I mean, it's insane. You watch onboard video, and I'm like, I can't. I feel like I'm getting ready to have a seizure. Right, watching an onboard video of them, because they're just going like the Millennium Falcon, warp speed. It's how do you? But that's what separates them from us more mortal men, right? Absolutely, it is.
So the setup of the TT is quite different anyway, because the priority of the TT is stability. because you are going so fast and the road, it's a road at the end of the day, and there's bumps, potholes, manhole covers, grids, curbs, crash knows what. And you've got to take all that on board. So the one thing you don't want is something which is flighty and nervous, because you'll spend your life, shitting yourself that it's going to go horribly wrong in a straight line even. So you want something which is steady and solid underneath you. It was interesting what you said offline about softening the suspension up, and it's still what you would describe as firm, because of course the bikes are still producing a lot of 200 odd horsepower, so you need, and they're going fast around corners, so you need the bikes to be firm on the suspensions, otherwise you can't have soft suspension and run all that power. So there's a fair bit in the setup of the bikes to make them work on the road, but the priority is always stability. There's no point in being able to go really fast but you're out of control. You're better off having a little less speed and being in control, because ultimately you'll be able to push harder and probably go faster ultimately, because the thing's stable. As long as it goes around corners, if stability, if you've got almost too much stability and you can't turn into fast corners, that's the problem. At the Northwest 200, they banned some years ago carbon fiber wheels, because there was the worry that they were going to start breaking up. Even on the stock sport class, which is essentially production bikes, glorified production bikes, which you can, the BMW S1000 comes with carbon fiber wheels. They banned them even for that, so they had to use the cast wheels by comparison. And if you start changing wheels out and making the reciprocating forces less, the bikes change direction better, but they also lose stability. So there's a huge amount of geometry that they've got to mess about with. And if you talk to the riders who do it and say, if what number one is reliability, you've got to get to the race. So second is stability.
Oh, for sure. I think if my memory serves me right, FHO Peter Hickman and the team had an issue with that because the BMWs come stock with the carbon rims, and I think it was at Daytona last year, if I'm not mistaken. They wouldn't let them run, or the year before, they wouldn't let them run the wheels because they were carbon. No, it wasn't Daytona, because you can't race 1000s. It had been over there. Maybe it was the Macau, one of those. Yeah, they had to get stock wheels. Well, non-carbon fiber wheels on the bike because of that. It's and
the Northwest they had with that.
Yep. Okay, yeah, it was that's exactly what it was. And I tell all my friends, I'm like, dude, the best, in my personal opinion, I think the best bang for the buck is obviously lighter wheels, right? Because it's unsprung and sprung weight, and it changes everything on the motorcycle, the handling, the way the suspension works, the geometry, yada, yada, yada. But yeah, you're right. Israel actually says, I had a tooth break apart and fall out of my head after my first practice at Daytona, the only adult tooth I've ever lost. But that was scary. Absolutely.
Don't swallow it now. That's the main.
Right. And if you do, no worries.
Pass it.
I was going to say, you'll just poop it out. Right. So. So we have a good mate of mine, Peter Marsh, RD Racing, him and his boy Jake Marsh. They're, man, I love those guys to guest. They have an awesome program. He says, evening, Chris and Mike the legend, Spike Edwards. The only time I've got to see Mike on a bike was last year at Alton Park, and he was on a KTM 390, and he blitzed my friend by 8 seconds a lap. Mike was kicking ass and beating the 690s. Mega to watch.
Yeah, it was a good that really. I've been riding last year, and I'll be riding this year with a A&G run by Andrew Widdowson, who's the owner, and he rides one. His son Ian rides, his daughter Kelsey rides, and this year his wife Sam, she's riding as well. So it's a real family outing. And we were on Kramer 690s. But at Alton, and Dean's bike had an issue. So it was crazy for me to stop Dean because I wasn't chasing the championship where Dean was. So I gave my 690 to Dean and dropped onto the 390. And obviously from a tactical point of view, it was a down. I was never going to win the race. Because you're never going to beat the guys on the 690s or the really fast guys on the 690s. But it was great because it took the pressure off me, and I mean, riding small bikes is brilliant because you just absolutely balls deep on it. You just flat out everywhere. And honestly, I think sometimes can improve your riding because you're not intimidated by the bike at all. And you just, on the assumption that the bike's working underneath you, just push harder and harder and harder and harder. And I was getting faster and faster and faster, and it kind of, where it ended up at the end of the day. And I did end up chucking it at the end of the day. But I was enjoying myself so much coming towards the end of the third race, I think it was. And then the last race of the weekend. And the guy was a guy in a 690, and I'd previously been beaten, and he was getting a little bit better, and he was learning what I was doing, and I was nailing him. And I thought, I'm going to have to really, really pull the pin now. So, like 2 laps to go, there's a corner called Drew, which is a double right-hand corner. And on the 390s, you're approaching just obviously flat out in top, and you just pull it back a gear, chuck it in, dab a brake, and then basically back on the gas. And that gets you through the corner and on to the next straight. And I had to beat racing basically into the last to maximize what I could do for the rest of the lap. And it all turned tits up, as we say. It all went horribly wrong. Lost the front, big crash, and the bike was very broken, shall we say. So that was the end of that bike, unfortunately. In fact, it was so fed up, the bike, when we got back. When we started it up, it spat the injector off the back of the bike. I think it was a death throw. Great. I mean, the Super Mono Championship in the UK, it runs with the CRMC Classic Club, and it's a growing class. It's tremendous class, really good, competitive, great depth of 2 classes. There's an Evo class, which is larger machines, and the more advanced rider, if you will. And then there's the Clubmans, which run the older style Super Monos. You like pre-90s, pre-2000 machines, and the 390s, because they run in the Clubman's class as well. And it's a really, really good racing. And entry level, the 390 is a great thing because you buy one off the street, less than £2,000 sort of thing. Put some plastics on, strip out some weight, go racing, and they're pretty reliable. So what more do you want?
I mean, I was always a fan of the RC390. It's a great platform. They're light, they're nimble, they handle well. I'm a big advocate of racing small, like learning to ride a small bike fast instead of a fast bike slow. You learn so much more, right? Because you're not intimidated by the power. You're not, you feel like you can actually ride the bike, but it teaches you so much about braking, corner speed, trail braking, corner entry, exit, because it don't have enough power to get its way out of a paper bag. So it's all about corner speed and drafting.
You have to focus on them things. You have to focus on that sort of thing. And, if you're on a big, large capacity, high power bike, you come out of a corner, you're hanging onto the damn thing, and the thing's spending its entire lap trying to kill you, and you're trying to sort of steer it around corners and hang on to it. Where the little bikes, the lower capacity bikes, seem steady and so much safer, which instills more confidence in you. From a technique point of view, you can develop your technique easier on the smaller bikes, and then put that technique back into the bigger bike, instead of just, because I've worked with a lot of people who've stepped up to a larger bike, and they actually end up lapping slower because they sort of wobble around the corner, point it down the straight, nail the straights, and then screaming this out, trying to get the thing stopped. And it's called point and squirt. That's all to do. Where they almost how to ride the bike. They're using the bike's power to make up and go instead of driving the bike fast, using the power. There's a big difference between.
Absolutely, there is. Israel also says that a 390 won the ultralight weight race at the Mannix last year, beating the new ZX4RR. How is that even possible?
That's unusual, yeah. Again, the I think it's obviously same circuit as the D, obviously, and the smaller bike flat out a lot longer. So on the assumption you've got a reasonable top speed, it's then not so much about acceleration, it's about keeping the ball rolling. I think possibly the 1990s will be slightly lighter. They'll certainly be nimble than the ZXR 400. Still quite surprised that a single beat a multi-cycle round something DT because the Kawasaki will undoubtedly be putting out considerably more power. I mean, a 390 will have 42 horsepower, 5.5 at the most, whereas ZX400 putting out. Mind you, if they're thinking it's the twin ZX400 as opposed to four-cylinder ZX400, no.
Yeah,
that'll be an easy one to find out.
Yeah. My good Peter, he says Mike videos are so good. Does he do any track day training with young racers, as the R&D riders would really benefit from your knowledge?
The younger riders, well, I do coaching with anybody, to be fair, you know, from novice riders, people stepping up from the road to the track for the first time, or people who have been track days and have all of a sudden discovered it ain't quite as easy as it looks, or have shoes that you know, I've few people who have crashed or keep crashing and can't understand why they're crashing, and it's often they're riding as fast as they can, but they just try and ride physically faster, but don't change what they're doing, and of course you're going to end up standing in the gravel at that point. The younger riders, I have to be careful with this, in the sense that sometimes you and I mean this in the nicest way, you'll get the motocross dad scenario, where you'll get lad's fantastic, he's fast, and you know you can make him faster, sort of thing, and the lad's not that bothered, and is the fathers are almost living vicariously through their children to go racing and sort of thing. So it's really the dad racing, but the son's doing the work. So the person who's having the coaching wants to or has to want to do the coaching, as opposed to be seen to be doing it. Because if you're not listening or learning and trying what we're talking about, as opposed to just, I mean, I've had young riders who I'll go through my process with them, and we go out on track, and they just, you can tell from second one they're just not listening. And almost the worst group of riders to talk to is your 19 to 22-year-old males who kind of look at me as an old geezer. What do you know? I'm a fast hotshot sort of thing, and it's a bit awkward sometimes with them, and you almost have to sort of bring them down a little bit to reality. But yes, I do coach them, but I need to stress to them how important it is that they have to want to do it, as opposed to the father or mother influence is kind of keeping them out. Because you know, I've been in the pit lane talking with them, and the dad's in it all the time, and I'm 100% a coach and the father and the son. So I have to sort of push them away and say, you go grab a late tea and stay in the background, fiddle with the bike, and let me talk to the young people, whether it's a boy or a girl. But I do work with the young people, but I'd like to do more. But the biggest problem in the UK, particularly with the really younger riders, sub 16-year-olds, is getting them on track time. Because you can't do track days in the UK without either a race license or a road license. And often the insurance won't let the younger riders out on track. So it's a major problem in the UK. And it's often the case why a lot of the really talented younger British riders all disappear off to Spain, because they have a much more of a better policy for the younger riders to get them out on track and encourage them. And you'll go down to Spain and you'll see like entire sessions on a track day, for instance, booked up just by young teams out there, and they're all like some as young as 9 and 10 years old, and they're absolutely flying. And you can just sort of see, you know, your Marquez's, all where they've come from. And some of these, particularly the really young riders, you know, these sub 10-year-olds, they've done 10 years worth of riding before a lot of people even sat on a bike. So they're hardened, established racers by the time they're 16, 17 years old, sort of thing. So we're in the UK, often we haven't even got on the track at that point. So it's really frustrating. And I think it's a commercial decision at the end of the day, because the one people which could make all the difference are the track day companies, the track owners and the track day companies kind of coming together. But of course, at the end of the day, it's a commercial decision. The track day company want to make money. They want to sell places. If there's only 6 or 8 young riders and they have to have a separate group, that's a major problem, because they have to lose another 30 places in the group. So maybe you should say, okay, the circuit owners should subsidise the track day company to have one group of riders, because I've always said you should try and segregate the younger element of riders from the more mature riders, because the younger riders, the less as a rule. And you know, if you look at almost any sport in the world, there's a minimum age limit where you have to do schoolboy or schoolgirl riding or tennis or whatever. It's segregated, where just like cycling, as that line much blurred. And from my point of view, I've often struggled with that when I've been racing against young riders, because often I can't really tell until they get off the bike, pull the helmet off, and you think, Jesus, it's a child at the end of the day. You can't walk up to them and whack because they just push track. I mean that in the nicest possible way. But I've had an instance where younger riders, they're through lack of experience, they've just done a real kamikaze move on me, and I thought that isn't. I've gone storming into their awning to sort of find out why they've done that sort of thing, and it can be a child who's done it, sort of thing, and it's one of those awkward topics that you come up occasionally. So younger riders, yes, I would do work with them, but it's difficult in the UK to get them back on track. That's the biggest problem.
He says his riders range from 15 to 20 years old in age. So maybe I can give my buddy Peter your number, or give you his contact information. Y'all two can sit down and come up with a game plan. He's absolutely amazing human being. They run a program called RD Racing, bringing up the future kids of the sport. And one thing that I do find, and you said it right, it's hard for us men to put our egos aside, meaning that, we're getting proper training from somebody and we're like, dude, he's grandpa status. I'm way faster than him. What the hell does he know? Right. It's like, keep your mouth shut, put your ego to the side, listen and learn. Right. And you'll benefit from it. I find that, it's hard for, especially young adults that, we was all there one time. Mike, we know every fucking thing. Come on, man. You can't tell me nothing, that whole era, but that's not true at all. You really don't know shit. Right. So you need to listen and soak in that knowledge. And then next thing you know, you're out there laying the lap times down.
One, I do come across some people who I've got exactly what you need. They've got the hook. They might, from a talent point of view, they might not be the best thing, or they might be the best thing since sliced bread, but they've got that ability to sort of shut down their ego and actually absorb, listen, and take on board something. Because the definition of insanity is repeating the same thing and expecting a different result. You have to sometimes think outside the bubble, as it were. And for some riders, when I'm working with them, we have to slow them down because they're just bonsai everywhere, and it's the course of there's no plan B. They're just completely stupid on the bike almost. So you have to bring them down a little bit to get them to try something new, develop it, and then put some pace back into the riding with the new technique put in place. Because when you're riding around, if you go as fast as you possibly can, probably 90% or more of what you're doing on the bike is subliminal. You're doing it almost subconsciously. And if you're trying a new technique, you have to put some thought process to one side to actually then think about what you're going to do. You have to be proactive. You can't mid-corner think, what should I be doing now, because it's too late. So you've got to be proactive, plan ahead, as it were. And then so you're thinking about what you need to do before you get there. You then act out whatever we're going to do. And then you need a little bit of downtime after the corner to think about, well, how did that feel? What was the difference? So if you're working on a lap time point of view, that's a negative, because you often haven't got enough time to think about everything all the time, every lap sort of thing. So it ends up a bit of a fudge, and it's easier for the person, the coach, the trainee, to sort of revert back to what they normally do, because they can go faster doing that. So you have to sometimes slow them down, say, look, turn your lap timer off. We're not doing lap times today. We're developing a technique, and we're going to use corner 1, corner 5, and maybe corner 8. All the other corners, you just ride into the next bit, and then I want you to focus on that bit. And again, some people don't take that on board. They can't work out sometimes, well, I want to go fast. Well, you've got to put a structure in place and develop it, and then start to wind up the speed. It's not just about do that and you'll go faster. Do that might take quite a long time to get sorted out. And of course, then you naturally will go faster. And sometimes, again, it's unfortunate that the younger element, their attention span, shall we say, can be limited. And they want instant gratification. It's like almost if they had a chip in the head, they'd like to take the chip out, reprogram it, put it back in and go. But coaching doesn't work like that.
No, neither does life. Let's just be honest, right? We all, I think us humans naturally, bro, always want to take the easiest, quickest way around everything, right? It's difficult, I think, for us to really want it and put in the work and training, right? But that's also, again, what separates legends from your average track day racer, right? Is being able to mentally learn, keep your mouth shut, take it all in, and focus, right? You're right. The racetrack's got many corners, right? The fastest way around it.
For me, on a bike, every day is a learning day. I mean, I've been racing for 2-3 years, something like that. And I'm still to people, try this, have a go at that. I've seen you doing that. Why that? Have a go at this. I don't shut them down. But, you have to think, I'll give that a go, sort of thing. So anybody, any person on the planet, no matter how good they are open to change, or should be open to change, develop, because potentially is you'll get some, as most riders, to be fair, will plateau at a certain point in their ability. Then that's where the coaching kind of comes in, the mentoring sometimes comes in, to work out what kind of the next step is. And obviously, if you're good and really fast, that steps are incremental, tend to be quite small. So it's sometimes refinement of something that you want, rather than a massive land change. You're doing all your body position completely wrong. It might be just like you need to move your shoulders slightly, or you might need to just pick up the flap a bit early, or wait a second, pause. And times being patient is payback's fantastic. There's so many things, but it at a certain level, the riders, it's about refinement. I forgot where I was going with that, but anyway, the coaching thing, yeah, definitely go for it.
So my question to you, Mike, being a coach and training all kinds of people, has the new camera technology come in, like the Insta360s and the GoPros, when you mount them on the bike? Has that helped your job become easier because you can actually physically watch them, the throttle inputs, the brake inputs, or around the whole track? Or
that's a really interesting question. An awful lot of the modern cameras have SD programs built into the camera, which kind of smooths the image out. And I don't like it for the simple reason is it's all the small little movements on the bike, which, as it were, an old style camera will record the faults as well as anything else. That's what I need to see. If I do a lot of online coaching with people, where they'll send me some images of them riding. I don't mean from the track side, but on board. And ideally, I like to have the instrument panel on speed, Taco Speedo, and because that's all data that I use. And a good audio channel as well is also so I can hear the throttle, and how you can tell by the sound of the bike often where they've got the throttle, whether it's part throttle or full gas, in RPM, so I can see the tacho. So that's ideal. But it's the small movements sometimes that I need to see, which a lot of the modern cameras with stability programs smooth out. And everyone who's got these cameras, they all look fantastically smooth. No shit, because it's not what's happening. It's almost not reality. It's a fudged reality. It's like if you use an editing suite, and there's a thing on Premiere Pro, and it's called Morph, and it morphs the two images together, so it's a seamless join when you're editing stuff, as opposed to a jerk when you go to the next scene. And that's kind of almost what the stability cameras do. I'm a massive fan of using cameras even in races, because any image that you get essentially is data that you can use. And particularly if you've got data on the bike, like I used to use data on my BMW coaching bike, and when I've got some free time, as when I'm not coaching somebody, I can actually go out and really push and enjoy myself or something, and utilising the data. So I've got a hard copy of actually what's happening on the bike. But sometimes that you'll see an improvement or a problem. And it's difficult to remember sometimes. Was that moving away? Or was it, did I have a problem? So the raw data sometimes can be slightly misleading, because you've nothing to put it against unless you can actually remember what that was. And that's where having a camera on the bike is, I think, so important, because obviously you can time code them so that what you see is what's happening on the data. So you can see if you come up behind somebody, you can see if you've run wide and clipped a curb or something like that. What the data won't show you that happening, sort of thing. So I'm a massive fan of the cameras. There's a big fad at the moment of in helmet cameras, which I think it's a daft thing to do, because where your head is pointing isn't particularly what you're looking at sometimes, and you'll often see them in the images kind of dancing around all over the place. Plus, God forbid if some of these cameras actually start to come loose in a crash, because of course nobody thinks about when things go tits up and you crash. You get a camera, you see these little ones shoved in the side of the sponge here, which they may only weigh 20-50 grams, which isn't a lot. But kinetic energy is very powerful. If you start banging your head on the floor and thrashing about, that 50-gram thing, which is next to nothing, all of a sudden turns to a lump of lead and can start bouncing around inside there. And I certainly wouldn't want to lose my eye on something. So there's some cameras you have to be sensible about where you put them and what you're going to do with them. But the onboard stuff definitely is a massive bonus for anybody, because you can use it not just to show you how wonderful you are to your mates, but you can use it much more from a data point of view. You're gathering data all the time. So yes, definite bonus. But pick your camera. Don't go for stability, or if you get one with stability, try and get it so you can turn it off, the stability. Okay, you'll have a, in brackets, poorer image, in the sense that the camera picking up little kind of movements and twitches, but that's what you wouldn't see, because that's the sort of thing you've got to eradicate. I went on a bit there, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. It was a question that I was thinking of as we're sitting here talking, just because the camera technology has just advanced so much, and you see it everywhere. All the riders, when they train off season, got the GoPros and the Insta360, and they got these invisible sticks, and it shows the body position and the whole nine. I just wanted to know from an instructor standpoint, the pros and the cons of that too, for sure. So yeah, some of that stuff
I use cameras. I use cameras when coaching because for me, the vast of the time when I'm working with somebody, following them, because I need to see what they're doing. There'll be times when I'll go in front of you and leave them. But it's more that happens when I'm with somebody's in the track and I'm trying to show them where to position the bike more than anything else. But generally speaking, when I'm working with somebody in front, and then record the image, because I've almost stand up round with people about sort of saying, you know, you're not using track because we're coming into this corner or coming out of this corner. Yes, I am. No, you're not. Yes, you're not. No, you're not. And I'll show them the image and say, shit, yeah. So the action of where they are on track is where they actually really are on track. So I show, look, see, when you come to such a corner like that, your foot's moving out, or your bum's to the wrong place on the bike, or see how you push the bike down as opposed to pulling the bike down. So you can use it a lot for that scenario. And of course, from the client's point of view, that gives them a third eye. They've got the feel because they're doing it. They've got the image of them doing it, so they can back it up in their mind what they've done wrong or what they're doing right, which is and happen obviously as well. So yeah, I use them definitely. I'm not going to stick my neck out on the block and say you know such a camera is the best one to use, because the stuff is all getting a bit samey as they're getting tend to be smaller. A lot of them now you can put features on which you can start overlaying it onto the screen, but I think that's a little shitty. I've seen these that sort of images come up there, and I've done it. I've got stuff to put on my list which puts the image on, but trying to match them because often they can be slightly delayed, the information showing on the screen as opposed to what's happening. So what's the point of it in that case? It's not actually what's happening that very second in time. There's not much point in having it there. So keep it simple, but use them.
Facts. I like that. I love that model. I tell everybody, keep it simple. Kiss. Keep it simple, stupid, right? Don't get lost in translation. Don't make it more confusing than fuck it already is, right? We actually have a comment. My good buddy Paul Pendergrass says, 2 of my favorite people to listen to while in the shop. What is up, guys? You, my friend, you're what's up. So yeah, he's a huge fan of yours too, Mike. Watches your videos and all that good stuff. So yeah, I hit the wrong button. All right, there we go. Listen, Mike, dude, we're an hour and almost 15 minutes in this. This has been an absolute proper mega good time. There's still so many more questions I want to pick your brain about. So let's sit down again and run a part 3 for sure.
Part 3?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're down for it, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Anytime.
So one last question I have for you, bro. Where did you get your nickname Spike from?
Right. That goes back to early 90s, really. There was a commentator who used to do all the major British Championship events. He commentated for 30 odd years. You know, he was around forever. He was part of the infrastructure. It was a guy called Fred Clark. And Fred was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. What he'd do is on the practice days on the lead up to the event, when there was not a lot of commentating to do as such, he'd spend his time going around the paddock, interviewing riders, getting stuff, gossip, not just racing, and then. So if there was a delay in the race, he keep his commentary going, as opposed to saying number 26 is very fast today, which is as dull as ditch water. He could actually talk properly and in depth about the riders, but he needs that data, of course. So he used to make loads of notes. Anyway, cut a long story short, I was at Mallory Park, 93, I think it was, on a Saturday morning after the Friday practice, and I'd completely destroyed my bike in practice, and we'd spent most of the night up, you know, fixing it. I even had to drive home to get some forks for the bike, and it was a bloody pile of shit anyway. We got it back together, me and my mechanic, in the morning, and we're sat in the awning in the morning feeling slightly groggy. And after we'd finished the bike, we'd had a couple of beers to celebrate, so we were both a little bit secondhand. Anyway, Fred popped his head in and said, "You all right, Mike? How's things going?" "Oh, yeah. And he says, "Oh, you're looking a bit rough." And my mechanic says, "Yeah, he's sick as a dog." And Fred sort of turned around and said, "What? Spike, the dog?" Off Tom and Jerry, and there was a bulldog called Spike. Yep. And he said, you're Spike the dog." So from that moment on, whether you like it or leave it, I was called Spike. You know, nicknames do tend to stick And sometimes you might not like them, but you have to live with it. And I don't mind Spike, to be honest. It's very close to Mike anyway, isn't it?
I think it suits you. You know, my nickname is The Show. I got that from actually a buddy of mine that him and these two guys actually started this podcast. I just took it over because they wanted to go a different direction. And he gave me my nickname, my second episode I was on with him, which I was just like, okay, whatever, right? I didn't even give two thoughts about it. Now, my son, when he gets aggravated at me, he'll say, The Show. Do you hear me? I'm like, bro, stop calling me that. You know, I laugh about it. It's funny. I've grown to accept it. You know, it's just different when you're not used to be calling something. Yeah, and people call you, hey, the show's here. And I'm like, I'm looking around, I'm like, who's he talking to? They're talking to you, dumb. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, yeah. But yeah, it's
cool.
It's different. But listen, Mike, it's been an absolute honor to have you back on. Just stay on with me after I end this. We'll go ahead and schedule our part 3. But before we get off here, I'm gonna let Mike end it as I always do. I just want to say a big shout out to Next Level Financial, BisonTrack.com, Chef Eats, TST Industries, theclothingkings.com. You guys can go to theclothingkings.co.uk and get all your Pin to Gas merch out there. So big shout out to Martin. SFL Mini GP out here in Florida and in Jersey, Superbike Supply, RD Racing, and my man Jake Marsh. Vet2 Track, Flying Eyes Optics, 64-degree racings, which is undersuits. Ghetto Customs for all your custom body work. We have a racer out here, Mike. His name is Chris Parrish. He makes the best body work for your race bikes, hands down. Been racing a long time. Carnes Performance in Pennsylvania, KYT Helmet America, K-Tech Suspension. Big shout out to Birch, Kendall, and Dakari. If you're not racing on K-Tech Suspension, I don't know what you're doing with your life, but you need to get it on your bike. RTR Racing, Coleman Power Sports, McLeo Escapes, Track and Tour, Road Racing World. I need everybody to go to roadracingworld.com, donate to the Rider Fund. It is for our air fences. It is imperative that we have air fences in place at the racetracks. Otherwise, guess what? We're not going racing. Just like the corner marshal workers, big shout out to them, and the guys at the ambulance and the helicopters. Nothing but love for each and every single one of you guys and girls that do it. And thank you so much for doing it. STG Drippin' Wet. Drippin' Wet is a buddy of mine. He does graphics, so he makes graphics for motorcycles and all that good stuff. And in Venom Undersuits, another friend of mine that makes custom undersuits. Her name is Aliki. She actually makes undersuits for MotoGP riders and racers from around the world, World Superbike, you name it. So yeah, big shout out to them. Of course, Mike the Spike Edwards, the #1 coach in the whole world. So Mike, tell everybody where they can find you on social medias, where they can sign up and get some coaching from you.
Well, it's the easiest way is to go to v121.com. Sorry, v121pro.com. And there you can find out most of the stuff from there, or you can go to mikeedwards.net.
Mike-Edwards.
Yes, that's mike-edwards.net dash, you want to call it, .net. And then you can hook up most of the stuff from there, really.
I love it. Well, listen, I wrote that down because I'm going to start giving you a shout out on every podcast moving forward, starting today. I got one here in a few minutes after we get off. I think it's great to have people of your caliber that's given their whole life to racing and that's given back to the sport, right? It shows your love and commitment for our beautiful circus, as I always call it. And yeah, Mike, it's been an honor. Thank you so much. We got so much more to talk about. I cannot wait for part 3. So this episode will be out on Spotify, iHeartRadio, and all that good stuff. If you guys did not miss it, if you guys missed this, you come in halfway or whatever it is, you can immediately go to my YouTube channel, Pin to Gas, and rewatch it live. Well, it won't be live. It'll be recorded, but you guys can physically watch it there. You can also go to my Facebook and rewatch it. And tomorrow it'll be out everywhere. I'll tag him in it. I'll post it out on all the social media, so you cannot miss it. Mike, is there anything you want to say before I end the podcast?
No, just stay safe. Hope Rossi gets out and get some sun at some point. And we'll catch up another time for part 3.
Absolutely, we will. Ladies and gentlemen, it was an absolute honor today to sit down with the legend, Mike Spike Edwards. See you guys. All right, Mike, hang on one second. Let me end this. I have a new outro that a buddy of mine sent me. So just listen to this and I'll bring us back in this.
Calling all two-wheel enthusiasts, get ready to rev up your earbuds with Pin the Gas Podcast, the ultimate motorcycle racing podcast, hosted by Chris Simcoe, one of our very own excellent leaders here in Roanoke, Virginia. With expert analysis, behind-the-scenes stories, and exclusive writer interviews, Pin the Gas Podcast delivers the adrenaline rush of the racetrack straight to your ears. Whether you're a diehard fan or a curious newcomer, you'll gain insights that will transform how you watch and understand motorcycle racing. On your favorite podcast app, join Simcoe as he takes you on a high-speed journey through the world of motorcycle racing. Pin the Gas Podcast.